That's a common story, one of those pieces of Elvis lore that feels like it must be true. It's so dramatic. A superstar, a young man at the peak of his fame, drafted into the army and sent thousands of miles from home. And then, the worst possible news comes over a crackling telephone line. He picks up the phone and in a moment of pure heartbreak sings a song of desperate longing to his dying mother. The song you mentioned, with its urgent plea, seems to fit that story perfectly. It's a powerful image, but the truth is often quieter and more complicated than the legend. The story of Elvis and his mother, Gladys, and the music that connected them is a deep one. It's a story about a bond so strong that his entire life and his music was shaped by it. To understand what really happened, you have to go back. You have to understand who they were to each other. Gladys Presley was the center of Elvis's universe. He was her only surviving son. His twin brother, Jesse Garin, was stillborn. That fact alone created a bond of incredible intensity. For Gladys, Elvis was a miracle, a precious gift she nearly didn't have. She poured all of her love, her fears, and her hopes into this one boy. They were poor, moving from place to place in Tupelo, Mississippi. Vernon, his father, was in and out of work, even spending time in prison. Through all of it, Gladys was the constant. She was the one who held everything together. They had a private language, pet names for each other. They were more like best friends or conspirators than just mother and son. When he was a little boy, she would walk him to school and be there to walk him home every single day. She was terrified of something happening to him. As he got older and started to find his way with music, she was his first and most important audience. She was the one who listened, who encouraged him. When he bought his first guitar, she was proud. When he started singing in public, she was nervous but supportive. His fame when it came happened incredibly fast. One minute he was a truck driver, the next he was on television, and then he was the most famous person in the world. For Gladys, this was terrifying. She was a simple, shy country woman. The screaming crowds, the reporters, the constant attention, it was overwhelming. She worried constantly. She worried about the girls chasing him, about the people trying to take advantage of him, about him being so far away from home on tour. Elvis, for his part, did everything he could to make her comfortable. The first thing he did with his real money was buy her a house on Audubon Drive in Memphis. Then, when that became too public, he bought Graceland. Graceland wasn't for him, it was for her. It was his attempt to build a safe, beautiful fortress where his family could be together, away from the chaos of his celebrity. He bought her a pink Cadillac, even though she couldn't really drive. It was the gesture that mattered. It was him saying, "Look, Mama, I made it, and this is all for you." But she was never truly comfortable with it. She was proud, immensely proud, but also lost. The world her son now lived in was not her world. She stayed home, managed the house, and worried. Her health began to decline. She gained weight, she was taking diet pills, which some say were amphetamines, and also medication for her nerves. She was unhappy and anxious. The joy of her son's success was poisoned by the fear that came with it. Then came the news that felt like a death sentence to both of them, the draft. In 1958, Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, was being drafted into the United States Army. He could have tried to get out of it. His manager, Colonel Tom Parker, could have pulled strings to get him into a special services unit where he could entertain the troops and continue his career. But Elvis refused. He wanted to be a regular soldier. He wanted to do his duty, to make his family and his country proud. For Gladys, this was the ultimate nightmare. Her boy was being taken away from her. Not just on tour for a few weeks, but for 2 years, and he wasn't going to be down the road. He was going to be sent to Germany. To her, that was the other side of the world. She was convinced she would never see him again. She cried constantly in the weeks leading up to his departure, and Elvis was just as scared. He was a mama's boy, and he wasn't ashamed of it. He was terrified of leaving her, especially with her health being so fragile. He put on a brave face for the cameras and the public, but in private, he was a wreck. The day he was sworn in, the photos show him looking like a lost little boy. The day he had his famous army haircut, Gladys was there, and she wept. This is the context you need. This is the emotional state they were both in when he was preparing to leave. It was a time of immense fear and sadness. Music was their connection. It was how he expressed the things he couldn't always say. And there was a song associated with this period, a very specific and poignant one. It wasn't a song he sang on the phone the night she died. It was a song he sang for her before he ever left. He had a small portable tape recorder. At home, just before he shipped out, he sat down with it. He wanted to leave something for her, a piece of himself she could listen to while he was gone. He recorded a few songs. One of them was a duet with his friend, a gentle ballad. The lyrics were a promise. They were a message directly from a son to his mother, telling her not to be sad, telling her that he would be back. It was his way of trying to soothe her deepest fears. He was telling her, "I will be home again." That recording was for her ears only. It was a private, tender moment, a stark contrast to his public image as a rebellious rock and roller. He shipped out for basic training in Texas, and then in the fall of 1958, he was sent to Friedberg, Germany. He brought his father and his grandmother with him, trying to recreate a piece of home in a foreign land. He lived off base in the nearby town of Bad Nauheim. He did his duties as a soldier. He drove a jeep, went on maneuvers, and in his off hours, he tried to live some semblance of a normal life. But he was constantly thinking of his mother back in Memphis. He called her all the time. The phone bills were astronomical. He needed to hear her voice. He needed to know she was okay, and she needed the same from him. In early August 1958, while he was still in Texas, the calls from home became more alarming. Gladys was sick. Her doctor said it was hepatitis. Vernon, his father, downplayed it at first. He didn't want to worry Elvis, but her condition got worse, fast. She was admitted to Methodist Hospital in Memphis. Elvis was frantic. He spoke to the doctors, he spoke to his father, he pleaded with the army for emergency leave. This wasn't some celebrity asking for special treatment. This was a son desperate to get to his dying mother. The army, seeing the gravity of the situation, granted him leave. He flew from Texas back to Memphis. The press was everywhere, even on the military plane. But Elvis was in his own world of dread. When he got to the hospital, he was shocked by what he saw. In the few months he'd been gone, his mother had withered. She was frail and jaundiced. She was only 46 years old, but she looked much older. He barely recognized her. He stayed by her bedside for hours, holding her hand, talking to her, trying to will her back to health. He rarely left the hospital. He would go back to Graceland late at night to get a few hours of sleep, but he was right back there first thing in the morning. He was completely consumed by his vigil. His friends, the guys who would later be known as the Memphis Mafia, surrounded him, trying to offer what little comfort they could. They said he was inconsolable. He would cry, then get quiet, then pray. He was just a 23-year-old kid watching his whole world fall apart. The phone call story, the one where he sings to her from Germany, gets a crucial detail wrong. He wasn't in Germany when she died. He was in Memphis. He was there in the same city, just a few miles away at Graceland, when the final call came. It was the early morning of August 14th, 1958. Elvis had been at the hospital until late. He had finally been convinced to go home to get some rest. The phone rang at Graceland. It was the hospital. His mother had taken a turn for the worse. He and Vernon rushed to the car to go back, but before they could even leave, the phone rang again. It was too late. Gladys was gone. The grief that followed was immense and terrifying to witness. At the funeral, he was completely broken. He leaned over her casket, crying, touching her hair, talking to her. "Goodbye, darling, goodbye," he sobbed. "I love you so much. You know how much I love you. I lived my life for you." He seemed to lose all control. Friends had to physically support him to hold him up. He was a shattered man. This event drew a line in his life. Many people close to him said that the boy who existed before his mother's death was gone forever. A light went out. He returned to Germany to finish his service, a changed man. He was more serious, more introspective. His music began to change too. He started to explore gospel music more deeply, the music that had been his mother's favorite. The songs of faith and solace became his own solace. Now, let's go back to the song you asked about. The one with that driving beat and lyrics about a Saturday night date. Think about that song. It's a great rock and roll number. It's full of energy, confidence, and a little bit of swagger. It's about a guy telling his girl to get her dancing shoes on because he needs her love, and he needs it right now. It was recorded in 1959 after he came back from the army. It's a fantastic piece of Elvis pop music. But does it sound like a song a son would sing to his dying mother? The tone is completely wrong. The sentiment is worlds away from the situation. Singing that song in that context would have been bizarre, almost nonsensical. The legend likely got started because the title, taken out of context, has a ring of desperation to it. I need your love tonight. It sounds like a plea, and people love a dramatic story. So, the elements got mixed together: Elvis in the army, far from home, his mother dying, his love of music. A song title that sounds like a cry for help. Over the years, these pieces were assembled into a story that was memorable and cinematic, but not true. The real story of a song for Gladys is the one that happened before he left. It's the story of the private tape recording. That story is quieter, more intimate, and in its own way, far more moving. It wasn't a desperate cry in the face of death. It was a gentle promise made in the face of a long goodbye. It was a son trying to reassure his mother, and perhaps himself, that everything was going to be alright, that he would be back in her arms soon. The myth of him singing on the phone from Germany is powerful because it casts him as a tragic hero, using his art to bridge an impossible distance at the last possible moment. But the truth reveals something deeper about him. It shows him not as a superstar, but as a son. A loving, worried son, using a simple song and a small tape recorder to try and hold his family together as he was being pulled away from them. The loss of his mother haunted him for the rest of his life. He kept her room at Graceland exactly as she had left it. He would often talk to her as if she were still there. That bond was never broken. And the music he made was forever colored by her memory, by the gospel hymns she loved, by the tender ballads that spoke of love and loss, and by the promise he made to her on that little tape recording before he left for the army. So, the song he sang for her, the one that truly matters in this story, was not the rock and roll hit you're thinking of. Now, it wasn't a plea for love on a Saturday night, it was a soft, gentle promise. It was his way of saying, don't worry, I'm coming back. The song he sang for his mother was, I will be home again.